Um, there is a lot of talent leaving Eastern Europe, and I've seen the Baltics as well, going to Silicon Valley, moving to UK, where it's easier to start a company. What is the most important thing that the supporters of the entrepreneurial ecosystem here need to do in order to keep them from leaving?
Don't stop them from leaving, okay? The people who want to leave will leave. The question is whether they come back, okay? So I think, you know, in terms of going back to the previous one, what the government can do, create the right conditions for people wanting to come back. But it's actually good that people travel somewhere else, get other experience. You know, someone who's spent 2 years working in a startup in the Valley and seen how it works there and comes back here to do a startup will be much, much stronger, right? So I don't think that's a bad thing as long as they come back. So here the key thing is to create the best environment to entice people to come back.
I cannot agree more.
And you speak from experience. So I guess I just wanted you to elaborate. What would be something specific that the government can do? What makes a good environment for somebody to come back?
So I think it's actually the really mundane and boring stuff. It's like make microeconomics simple, running a business, work well. Setting up, liquidating businesses, taxes, bureaucracy, all of that stuff, which is the kind of stuff that in this part of the world is still, relatively speaking, much more of a pain in the neck. Fix those things, and then businessmen will want to come back, including startup people, but not just, others too.
It's hard to add, some very concrete thoughts. It's a very wide topic, but I totally agree with Andris that we definitely had the first generation who really had to try moving out to get some experience, which was not here. So it's really good to have people coming back and bringing it in. For example, we have our flagman, Ilya Laurs from Gedjar, who has done a very great job of making this tech entrepreneurship a really cool thing. And he kind of brought the scent of America to Lithuania. So I think it's always a good thing. I could talk for hours about the bureaucracy things, but I will not go into that, but just add a small bit that the benefit of this country, and I think of Latvia also, is that being a relatively small country, we have a very, very fast way of really getting notice of the Prime Minister, as you noticed yesterday, and of the Minister of Economy, who was here also yesterday. So it's a very big thing. It's not that hard to really make them listen to these good initiatives, and they are the people that really try to understand. Well, at least they were, and hopefully the new government will also be, as much outlooky to these things. So just a few things.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all of you, and I think that it's very important for the government to work with the local supporters of entrepreneurship. So, for example, you, Justinas, who are doing the startup space, you need to coordinate with them and for them to adopt laws and rules that apply to entrepreneurship from your point of view and talk to the startups that try to do something here. Okay, so success stories. In the region, Skype is probably the biggest, right? What else do countries here need to do to bring more exposure, to bring the whole world looking at them and what we do, and bring more investors, bring more people besides Silicon Valley comes to the Baltics, which is amazing.
I mean, I do think you mentioned Estonia's president, who's very high profile in speaking and being a public advocate of other programs that they have. So they were among the first countries to have e-voting or have one of the best e-voting systems, and that caught some attention, certainly in the United States during our archaic election period. So being a role model for that, or even using your mobile phone to pay for parking or to get a test score, they're doing a number of initiatives that the president is then going out and acting as a spokesperson for. So his commitment to highlighting some of the initiatives that the government's doing in combination, I think, is a really good model that you could certainly do here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all important. The best thing that can help get more attention is more startups that are globally successful. So we try and encourage all the startups to think global from day one, look for global client bases, and the more of those that grow bigger, the earlier, the more will come back. And it's kind of as simple as that. The problem is that takes some time. So everyone needs to be kind of patient. It's going to take some years for the big successes. You know, Estonia was kind of lucky that Skype, which was some Swedes and Danes, you know, worked with the Estonians, and they should use it. But you know, that process starting from scratch takes a while, but it will happen.
I can add it maybe from the other side. I would say that, well, that's my opinion, but I think in general we have a decent amount of exposure already. And I think the best thing that we're trying to do, or at least I think we're trying to push through some really quality, some good quality companies, especially the new ones that are being rolled out currently, to make these the real success stories, not the exposed ones, for example, that they managed to get attraction or they managed to raise some money, but to make these very sustainable businesses who are really making, you know, nice profits, who are really high profile, who are really doing some quality stuff. So I think we should maybe concentrate a bit more on exposing the quality that we can deliver, and this different approach to the startups, not just going around and shouting. And I think this is the thing that has happened in the last maybe 10 years, because we really had some nice companies being developed together with Germans, for example, together with other countries, and who have been sold. Maybe there are at least, you know, a couple of cases which I know which have been sold for tens of millions of euros, but those have not been exposed. But a certain amount of people know that, and it's a good thing, because it really inspires more to really work hard. So I think the Lithuanian side is, I think that we're an engineering country, and we tend to work more and expose less. Why haven't they been exposed? I think the people, you know, just aren't, I think they're not up to it. It's just a thing in the culture. So, but there's definitely, you know, we could at least line up, you know, maybe 20 companies in the last 10 years who have been amazing in some, you know, in some areas. And from one point, I totally agree with you, it could inspire these young people, but on the second part, I think that if they will get into this ecosystem and if they will get going through it, so they will meet those people eventually, and they will listen, you know, their story from their lips, and it will be more effective. So this is my strange opinion.
So the problem with exposure to different startup ecosystem is not a problem that's unique to this place. It's a problem that's pretty much everywhere except for Silicon Valley. I would say even London, even like in Australia, you have all these problems, which is why I'm taking almost a year off to traveling around the world to 29 different countries to write about the startup ecosystem, because I do believe the next big startup might come from somewhere outside of Silicon Valley. And I believe to solve this problem, you kind of need to have like a global movement to really understand like there are things outside happening. And there are a few people that are doing this right now. Like Startup Weekend is doing a great job of like promoting like a startup outside of the U.S. There's also Startup Digest. I'm doing something. 500 Startup is also doing something to promote these like international startups. And I think it's going to take a little time for us to really catch on. But I think it is going to be a global movement, and we're going to find a way to make these like, you know, regions known for the startup world.
Okay, so one thing that you would tell the young people that are not entrepreneurs yet to have them consider like starting a business or becoming an entrepreneur, what would you tell them to convince them to try it out?
So besides saying everyone should start a business, maybe I should clarify. Well, actually startups are not for everyone. There are people for whom the risk profile is not right, because it's definitely a higher risk thing to do. But what you should do is try it. So find some way of trying it. I think Diane's comment about, you know, doing something in your spare time, try a project, see what it feels like. You will pretty soon find out whether you like it, because either you like the excitement, the being on the edge, the creating something new, the ability to influence your, you know, the outcome much more closely. Either you'll like it and love it and want to keep doing it, or you'll go back to doing something else. And you know, but trying it out is the key. So I worked in a startup for, I think, 5 years, having gone to business school and being a strategy consultant, and I tried going back to being a strategy consultant and quit 3 weeks later because I was stuck. I mean, I can't do anything else, right? So see if that's for you, and just find some way to give it a shot, and then you'll see.
Since most of you guys are still students, you probably wouldn't understand this. But just remember this: when you're working, like a few years from now, and one day you wake up and you say, "Man, I really don't like what I'm doing. I'd much rather work for myself or be able to take a whole year off to travel around the world and have fun." If that's the case, do a startup.
Wow, travel, that's a tough one to beat. Yeah, I mean, basically what I said about just getting your hands dirty, just getting involved with something, even if it's part-time, it's a low-risk way to get first-hand exposure. And then the other thing I would add is find someone else who's done it before and get to know them and talk to them. So you've kind of heard from some people today that have done it, but it's great to talk to someone that maybe you know through a friend or someone that you have a closer connection with, and maybe work with them or just track them a little bit so you know less the highlights of speaking on stage of what it is, the milestones of the funding, etc., but the day-to-day stuff, it's really, really important to know what you're getting yourself into, and so even living vicariously through somebody else is a great way to get a feel for what it's like too.
I have only one simple thing to add. Try it. You will love it.
Okay. As a conclusion, I think that what was the most difficult stage in starting an entrepreneurial ecosystem has been passed successfully in the region. And I'm really excited about what's going to happen next. I think we have awesome people that are working on, developing it even more. And yeah, I'm going to come back and see what's going to happen in entrepreneurship in the Baltics. Do you have any conclusion? What's your opinion about? Well, you live here, so. But, yeah.
Maybe the colleagues from Silicon Valley might have, a different, more interesting perspective. So I'm willing to listen to them first.
Yeah. What was your opinion about Lithuania and the Baltics before you came here? What's your opinion now?
I've never been here before, so I'd sort of heard the PR around Skype, around Estonia, and a bit of the other Baltic states, but I was pretty much a blank slate. So I'd say I'm definitely impressed with the level of education, the fact that most people are literate in a couple of languages. So I think the raw talent is here, and the motivation seems to be growing. So I think a lot of the ingredients are there, so I think it's exciting.
I'm excited about this place, and for various reasons, but I'm going to hold back my thoughts because I want to see some of you guys at Startup Weekend, because that's when you actually know if you're just talking about doing startups, or you're actually going to do something about it, and that's ultimately the most important thing. So if I see a lot of you at Startup Weekend doing some awesome stuff, I'll be even more excited.
Yeah, so I'm obviously excited about the region. I'm sticking around here and working here. I think it's going to be great. There's a lot of good stuff to come.
Yes, you want to add anything? As a hardworking player in the community, what are you most excited about?
Well, I won't add anything actually. I'm okay.
Okay, thank you guys. So, and for you, keep attending these type of events, Startup Weekend. Bowei is promoting it more, even though I work for them, and I promise I didn't pay him. Keep attending, events like this, events that happen and are exposed on a global level. And Startup Weekend is a great event where you can learn how to start your business. This Silicon Valley Comes to the Baltic is a great event for learning from experienced entrepreneurs, getting people with a lot of knowledge about how this is working and it should work, and their failures as well. Just try it out. And I'll see you in 5 years maybe. Hopefully. Thank you guys.